Welcome to Local Edition. I'm Bella Shaw. Given the choice, would you rather live without water or electricity? Most people would say electricity, and water is becoming such a heated political issue. Eric Bergh with the Calleguas Municipal Water District has been dealing with this issue for a quarter century. No, it's true.
It's true.
And it's never ending. And it's becoming like liquid gold. This is a huge, contentious area. What's the latest you can tell us other than we're in a severe drought?
Well, we are in very dire straits at this point in time with respect to our imported water supplies on the Colorado River system, and also for the Calleguas service area and much of Southern California, the state water system. So the Sacramento Delta, the Northern Sierra watersheds. Over the last 5 years, we all know we've been in a fairly severe drought condition. We would argue that the first 4 years of that drought was truly Mother Nature induced or influenced. The last year, we had above average conditions, snowpack slightly above or just about 100% of average. Overall precipitation, 115% of average in the northern part of the state. So decent runoff into the Sacramento, San Joaquin Delta region. However, we weren't able to capture enough of that water due to various regulations that have been in place over the last decade or so. So we had about 1 to 1.5 million acre feet of water that flowed out under the Golden Gate Bridge that normally wouldn't have. And that's water that we could have used to replenish key reservoirs south of the Sacramento Delta, the San Luis Reservoir, which reached 10% of capacity in July, which was virtually an historic low and an extreme drought buffer for us, serves as a drought buffer for us. Prior to 2008, that reservoir would virtually fill every year, 2 million acre feet of water. It got down to 200,000 acre feet of water this summer. So that's water that we couldn't move into the central part of the state and the southern part of the state to replenish some of our reservoirs, whether it's Lake Castaic, Diamond Valley Reservoir in the Hemet area, Lake Mead, which on the Colorado River system. Lake Mead's down 150 feet. Different issues there. That's more of a structural planning issue. Drought involved as well, but here in the Sacramento Delta service area, very real concerns with respect to how we're going to make it long term and providing a reliable water supply from that system.
The irony has always been, Eric, here we have this severe drought and we have all these water problems and we're sitting on the ocean,
Yeah.
San Diego was able to build a desalination plant to the tune of how many?
$1 billion.
$1 billion.
Right. And it'll meet roughly 8 to 10% of their annual demand, which they still need to import roughly 90% of their demand because they don't have many groundwater resources there. They're going to recover some of their recycled water as well and perhaps use that in a potable manner going forward. That will help. But the bottom line, a lot of folks tend to think, well, why don't we just look to the ocean? And for us, we have, and we will continue to look at that in more detail over the next 12 to 18 months. But the truth is, most of our demands in our service area, which extends from Simi Valley and Thousand Oaks, the Conejo Valley to the Oxnard Plain, essentially south of the Santa Clara River here in Ventura County, 75% of the population. Most of our demands are in the East County, Simi Valley, Conejo. They're landlocked.
Pump the water
we would have
in.
to treat the water from the ocean and then pump it over 1,000 feet into the Simi Valley area, which even more expense. So cost of ocean desal is generally around 2 to 3 times the cost of our imported water sources, probably closer to 3 by the time we get through the details of the planning. So perhaps in the future, it's not there yet, it's not ready for prime time yet, so we're focused on groundwater desalination. There's a lot of poor quality groundwater in our area that we're able to recover and use to reduce our imported water demands, which is a good thing. But even if we develop all of these local resources, every one that's been proposed by the retail agencies in our service area, we're still going to have a very sizable demand on imported water, 100,000 acre feet a year over the next 25 years in each year. So that's considerable. That's not water that can be made up entirely with conservation or recycled water. Our recycled water starts out as our imported water supply. Simi Valley, 99% reliant on state water last year. The Conejo Valley, 100% reliant and has been for 45 years. Because their groundwater resources either are non-existent, largely non-existent, or very poor quality.
Contaminated.
Contaminated.
Yeah.
If they start to develop that water, even at max development, they're still going to be 75 to 85% reliant on another source, whether that's imported water, seawater desal, et cetera.
How do you sleep at night?
Depends on the night. as we're now heading into the California water fix process with Governor Brown's proposal, we feel that we're at a critical stage in that process. Over the last 2 years of his term, he's the chief political architect of this proposal.
And are you talking about sharing information?
Yes. Well, we have worked closely with 30-plus organizations, cities, agencies just within Ventura County to have a unified front for the California Water Fix, the Delta Tunnels program. And we've been very successful at that the last couple of years, building this coalition. We wish others in Southern California were as active as we are, because we realize that without that, a reliable state water supply, we got to stop the hemorrhaging. It's not about creating more water in the Delta, it's stopping the hemorrhaging. Over the last 10 years, our reliability and the allocations on the state project have dropped by 45%. That's not sustainable. And the concern is if we don't do anything up in the Delta to provide more efficient transfer of water from the north end of the Delta to the south end where the pumps are located, that hemorrhaging is going to get worse over time primarily because of regulations. And what are we going to do about it? Where are we going to pull that water? How are we going to meet that demand?
What are our options at this point?
Our options, our number one option is to build the tunnels to provide, again, more efficient transfer of water from the north end to the south end, as was originally proposed over 50 years ago under the original state water project plan. Yes, true, by Governor Edmund Brown Sr. It's called the Trans-Delta project, part of the state water project. It was never constructed. You have 6 counties that all extend into the Sacramento Delta, none of which like to see a drop of water move out of the Delta, right, to Central or Southern California. And that's been the case for half a century. So you had that, you had just the political winds of the day, and they ran out of money. So the facilities were never constructed. And we've been fighting this battle, again, for 50 plus years. So that is our our primary focus is to finish the state water project.
Wow.
It was never done.
And the systems in place now are becoming antiquated.
They are antiquated, and again, more importantly, not finished. You look back to 1965, the Fish and Wildlife agencies at that time proclaimed that the Trans-Delta solution was the best solution to generate a reliable water supply and to protect fish species. Well, we've had a lot of new science over the last 50 years, certainly, and water flow definitely has an impact on fish species and ecosystem concerns, but so do invasive species. We talked earlier about largemouth bass, striped bass,
salmon.
Mississippi silverside that have an effect on the Delta smelt and juvenile salmon species. You have agricultural urban wastewater discharges into the system, which contaminants also have an impact on the ecosystem. A lot of competing elements up in the Delta, a lot of concerns, and it's not just about state water. Only 4%, a couple of numbers to keep in mind, 50% of the state's population falls within the metropolitan service area here in Southern California. Over 50% of the state's economy is generated out of the metropolitan service area, yet only 4% of the total water use of Delta water or outflow of that water combined is used within Metropolitan's family of agencies. Half the state's population, half the economy, 4%. Those are numbers that everybody needs to know about, because when folks tend to point at Southern California as stealing their water, the truth is it just isn't true.
We're paying a pretty penny to get that
We
water
are,
here.
half $1 billion a year.
Wow. Gosh, Eric, I wish we had more time. We could just go on, and this will obviously have you back, because this is an ongoing issue and
Appreciate
something
the
that we
opportunity.
really need to get a handle on before it's too late. Thank you so much for joining us here on Local Edition.
Thank you.
And we thank you as well. I'm Bella Shaw.